Today, we are exploring an absolute game changer of a macroeconomics cheat sheet. I mean, it's literally going to gamify your next study session. If you've ever felt completely overwhelmed by labor dynamics, or maybe found yourself totally tangled up in business cycle theories, don't worry. We're going to decode all of these concepts together, lock in the absolute must-know definitions, and figure out exactly how to ace those tricky questions examiners just love to throw at us. Let's make this fast, structured, and incredibly effective.
Here is our quick roadmap for today. We're covering the core definition of unemployment, the 5 specific types you need to know, the business cycle roller coaster, that classic showdown between classical and Keynesian economics, some high-yield exam tricks, and we'll wrap it all up with a live mini-test.
Let's start right at the core and lock in that absolute baseline definition before we tackle the heavier theories.
So, unemployment is defined as a situation where people who are willing and able to work simply cannot find jobs. The absolutely crucial phrase to remember here is willing and able. That is the exact threshold that defines true unemployment in the eyes of an economist. You see, it's not just about not having a job, it's about actively wanting one, being fully capable of doing one, and still coming up totally empty-handed.
Now, you really have to watch out for this classic trick question. I call this the important trap. Examiners will try to trick you by asking if a full-time university student or a retired grandparent is technically unemployed. The answer? No way. They are entirely excluded from the unemployment count. Why? Well, because they aren't actively seeking work. They aren't currently willing to enter the labor force. They're busy studying or enjoying retirement. Basically, if you're not looking, you aren't unemployed.
Section 2. Now we're going to break down the 5 specific flavors of unemployment that you will definitely be tested on. First up, frictional unemployment. This is that temporary, totally natural unemployment that happens when a worker is just between jobs. I like to think of frictional unemployment as the transit lounge of the job market. Imagine a guy, let's call him Ravi. Ravi just left a perfectly good job because he wants better pay. And right now, he's just chilling in the transit lounge waiting to board his next job. It's short-term, it's natural, and honestly, it's a sign of a healthy, dynamic economy where people actually have the freedom to move around. Next is structural unemployment. And yeah, this one's a bit more painful. This happens when workers' skills just do not match the available jobs. You can visualize this like a massive hardware and software mismatch. Imagine showing up to an interview for an advanced AI coding position, but you're armed with nothing but a vintage typewriter and a certification in shorthand, right? The jobs are there and the workers are there, but the puzzle pieces just don't fit together because of massive technological shifts. So whenever you see the phrase technology mismatch on an exam, immediately think structural.
And here are the final 3 types to round out the 5. Cyclical unemployment is exactly what it sounds like. It follows the economic cycle. When a recession hits, demand drops, production drops, and boom, jobs drop. Seasonal unemployment happens when jobs are literally tied to the calendar, like agriculture or holiday retail. But then we have disguised unemployment. Pay attention here because this is the famous India favorite trick for exams. This is basically 5 people doing the work of 2. If you walked onto a family farm and just removed 3 of those workers, the actual crop output wouldn't even change. They look employed, but economically speaking, their marginal productivity is 0.
Section 3. Let's zoom out and see how all this builds from individual workers to the entire global economy, moving in these massive, predictable waves.
You see, the economy doesn't just move in a straight, boring line. It moves in waves. We always start with the boom. High production, high employment, everyone's feeling optimistic. But then we hit the peak. The economy overheats and inflation starts to bite. And what goes up must come down, right? So we slide right into period 3, the recession, where demand and jobs fall. If things get really bad, we hit period 4, the depression. And just a quick note, the depression phase is always the absolute most severe point of the cycle. Finally, we enter recovery, and the whole wild ride repeats itself all over again. Section 4. Go ahead and step into the ring, because it is time for a heavyweight bout between the 2 most famous economic theories in history. Over in the green corner, we have the classical economist. Their fundamental belief is that the economy is a totally self-correcting machine. If there's unemployment, they basically say, hey, don't panic. Wages will naturally fall, which makes it cheaper for firms to hire, and boom, the problem solves itself. It's just temporary. But over in the red corner, we have John Maynard Keynes.
Keynes looked at the Great Depression and argued that the classical view was dangerously wrong. He believed that without government intervention, an economy could actually get stuck in long-term unemployment indefinitely, simply because there's a severe lack of demand in the system.
Let's look exactly at why Keynes believed demand deficiency is the ultimate villain that triggers a recession. It's basically a domino effect. Domino 1, business investment falls. And because businesses aren't spending, we hit domino 2, people's income falls. When everyday people have less income, they obviously buy fewer things, which knocks over domino 3, employment falls, because factories just don't need to produce as much stuff. And finally, domino 4, a full-blown recession hits. It is a vicious downward spiral, completely fueled by a lack of demand.
So, what's the Keynesian fix for this mess? To stop that domino effect, both the government and the central bank have to step in and pull some very specific levers. The government needs to increase its own spending to create jobs and reduce taxes so people have more money in their pockets. At the exact same time, the central bank needs to reduce interest rates, which makes it way cheaper for businesses to borrow and invest, and increase the overall money supply. The ultimate goal of all these moves? To artificially pump up aggregate demand and shock the entire economy back to life.
Section 5. Okay, lean in closely for this one, because we're going to uncover the exact high-yield tricks that test makers absolutely love to use. Seriously, take a mental screenshot of this table right now. Burn these pairings into your memory, because instantly mapping these exam keywords to their answers is your foolproof cheat code. If the prompt says technology mismatch, boom, you select structural unemployment. If it says recession unemployment, you pick cyclical. If you see anything about agriculture, hidden workers, or extra workers, you know it's disguised unemployment. And if you see the name Keynes, immediately scan the options for the phrase demand deficiency. Trust me, knowing these triggers is going to save you massive amounts of time. Section 6. All right, it is time to lock in everything we've just explored with a live JRE level mini test. Let's see what's stuck.
Here's question 1. Unemployment caused by recession is A. Structural, B. Seasonal, C. Cyclical, or D. Frictional. Think back to our roller coaster timeline and those gold line tricks we just went over and mentally lock in your answer right now. Got it?
Moving right along to question 2. Disguised unemployment is common in A. Banking, B. IT, C. Agriculture, or D. Airlines. Remember that India favorite trick we discussed earlier? Picture those extra workers on the farm and lock in your guess.
And question 3. According to Keynes, unemployment mainly occurs due to A. High wages, B. Demand deficiency, C. Population, or D. Technology. For this final one, think back to the heavyweight boxing match and that Keynesian domino effect before you make your choice. All right, do you have your 3 answers ready? Let's check them. And here are the results. For number 1, recession unemployment is C, cyclical. For number 2, disguised unemployment is C, agriculture. And for number 3, the core of Keynes's theory is B, demand deficiency. If you locked in C, C, and B, huge congratulations! You have officially mastered this cheat sheet, and you are completely ready to tackle these concepts head-on. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a pretty provocative thought. Modern economics acknowledges something called the natural rate of unemployment. Because frictional unemployment, people freely switching jobs, and structural unemployment, which is just technological progress, are naturally built into the system, achieving zero unemployment is practically impossible. So ask yourself, if we lived in a world with literally zero unemployment, where absolutely no one was changing jobs and technology never disrupted the status quo, would that actually be a utopia? Or would it be a stagnant economic disaster just waiting to happen? Keep exploring, keep questioning, and I will see you in our next explainer.